There we go. We don't have to be too careful, but I think we're all right. This is fantastic. I've been looking forward to this all week. As soon as they put this on my radar, actually, I started to get excited about it. So I'm excited that we get to dive into all of this. And I think we're going to start with quick intros. And it's, Jordana, hilarious to me that I've only just realized the three of you haven't met before. I feel like I know the three of you quite well, but my interactions with all three of you have been quite different. So I think that's a really solid starting point. Maybe we'll go round robin. If you can share where you're all currently working in your job outside of Uvaro, your day jobs, what it is that first got you into teaching, not just at Uvaro, but teaching at all. So where did teaching start in your life? And we'll kind of go from there. And Jordana, actually, I'll toss it to you first, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I'm in 2 hours north of New York City in Hudson, New York. I'm a sales coach and consultant, and I also run a sales training community called the Practice Lab to help sellers develop their core sales skills through practice. And it's so interesting, I have been drawn to teaching and mentoring and enabling people almost from like the very beginning of my life. I mean, even in middle school, I was like directing theater, and then I moved into mentoring emerging artists, and then moved into sales. And then I realized very quickly how much I enjoyed empowering other people and developing their sales skills, and decided to make it a thing full time. But that's just been innate to me for as long as I can remember.
I had forgotten the theater origins, and this is,
yeah.
We have, so I have a lot of plans today for our conversation. I know this is going to come back. Thank you for sharing on the teaching portion, but I've just made a note to connect a few things. Apple, do you mind going next, just sharing your intro?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My full name is Apollonia, but everyone calls me Apple if you're curious. I'm a solutions engineer at Salesforce for their healthcare vertical. And you're probably wondering, what is a solutions engineer? So I partner with account executives to run discovery and demos for different customers. And my segment is in small business. I absolutely love it. I have a team of 6 wonderful account executives that I coach every day, listen to not only the pain points of their customers, but of their personal lives. And I absolutely love them to bits. Teaching and coaching, when did that start for me? I think I shared this previously with you, Sheila, but I was a piano teacher many moons ago in the Toronto area. And I love teaching children and seeing them grow from being absolutely awful to amazing pianists. So I think that's where it began for me. And yes, that is a word. Pianist is a word, as you all laugh and chuckle. It is a word.
This is great. And we're talking about pianists. Okay, I'm sorry, Brade. So, Megan, I'll toss it to you.
I don't know how to follow up that one. My name's Meg. I'm located in Toronto, Canada, and I'm also, just like Apple, at Salesforce, but on the account executive side, selling to financial service companies across Toronto. Where teaching started for me, I actually went to university to become a teacher. My full intention was to teach high school English and history, though in my first year of teaching field experience, realized high school kids scare me. So I transitioned into elementary school teaching. And then after I graduated from McGill University, I taught for almost 3 years. I taught kindergarten for a year, and then 2 years of special needs students. So I had the privilege of teaching kids that were ages 5 to 10, low functioning autistic in the greater Montreal area. And then I ultimately left my teaching career and moved to Toronto, where I stayed in some form of teaching capacity in my sales career, either working with sales enablement or in sales management.
I think if I remember, it started in ed tech, which seems like a logical progression there.
I was like, what do I do? Education, Toronto, here we go.
Here we are. So I feel like the 4 of us could just chat about so many things. Just hearing sort of backgrounds and histories and some humanities crossover, and then into music and the arts as well. I also want to make sure that one, I stick at least a little bit to our script and also give our attendees an opportunity to throw their own thoughts and questions into it. So just as everybody's joining, I can see the hellos in the chats and everything. I'm going to encourage anybody who's joined, if you have any subject areas or questions that kind of bubble up, please feel very free to throw them into the chat. Feel free to weigh in as we're getting into these topics. I would love to pull you into this discussion as well. But to start us off, because each and every one of you has not just started with a different starting point with Uvaro in terms of how you've been in our classrooms, but you've all been in the classroom in different capacities. Jordana, you mentioned demo day earlier, and all of you have also been in the classroom either to lead a session or to give feedback. So when we reached out and asked you to participate in this panel, the first question I wanted to start with was just what was it that prompted you to agree? I mean, I know I didn't have to strong arm anybody, but I'm sure each of you had your own reasons to being willing to participate in something like this. And we'll kind of do a bouncing around, but I'll toss it to you first, Jordana. Why did you say yes?
Yeah, so my love for the Uvaro community runs deep. And I'll just share that when I came up in sales, there were no resources, at least none that I knew of, like Uvaro, and LinkedIn wasn't as nearly as active as it is now. And there just wasn't the kind of access both to knowledge, but also humans who had kind of been there before me or who are a little bit further down the path. And one of the things that's been so meaningful for me in the last couple of years, really since COVID, when I kind of popped my head out on LinkedIn, is to discover such a rich and vibrant sales community. And I'm very aligned with the style of selling and the approach that Uvaro takes. And I like being able to just be, one of many voices talking about and sharing, what's possible in this crazy industry that we call sales. So that's why I said yes.
Megan, I saw your eyes light up when Jordana was talking about just there was nothing like this. Did you have similar reasons?
Similar reasons for sure. Of course, the love for the Uvaro community runs absolutely deep. I'm sure all of us here can attest to that. But when I was getting into sales, I didn't even realize I was getting into sales when I came from my teaching career. And I didn't know that it was an option when I was in high school. I didn't know it was an option when I was in university. For me, I had this trajectory that I thought I was going on. And then when I fell into sales, as I feel like a lot of folks had before, there was a lot of gaps. And one of them was access to a diverse background of sellers, women that had done it. I didn't see myself represented at a lot of the companies that I was at. And the more that I've been in this community and the more my network has grown, I'm able to get diverse and unique perspectives. And that's something that has made me a better seller. That's absolutely for sure.
What about you, Apple?
And I'm just going to piggyback of what Meg said. I completely agree of the representation piece. I do love that Uvaro makes a concerted effort to have diverse voices amplified and supported. It's one thing to act as if you support, a certain group of folks, but it's another to amplify those voices. And I really appreciate the work that the team has done. And just even on this call, the fact that there are 4 badass women sellers here is enough to make my little sales heart sing. Because when I first started 4 years ago, I made a pivot into tech sales. It was predominantly white males who were supported and promoted. I cared about promotions. I cared about career trajectory. I'm very vocal here at Salesforce about BIPOC representation. I'm leading my own initiative here, and I'm all about supporting the next generation of sellers, not only in terms of, gender, but also what their backgrounds are, where they grew up, what their lived experiences are. Because these days, customers, they aren't just white male customers. They come from all over the world. They have their own perspectives. And it's nice to see a seller who understands that perspective. So of course I was going to say yes to this, Sheila.
Yes. So I'm going to ask for story shares because this is off script. Not sorry, but I love that we're here already and that we're talking representation. And I know for people coming into the course that a lot of them have varying levels of familiarity with subject material relating to representation and different levels of awareness of how it impacts them. And I get to watch them go through this journey when they start their first role. And oftentimes conversations with women lead to a place where they're like, so representation. It turns out it's a thing. So I'll ask for a story share and I'll give you guys a moment to think about it. Looking for an example, the first time it became very apparent to you how representation would matter when it comes to your sales career specifically. Is there a moment where you were kind of like, huh? And to give you time to think about it, I'll share, for me, it happened not in the sales career sense, but the first time I was doing a jujitsu class with a female instructor and magically was able to learn everything way faster than I ever had before. And the only difference was the voice it was coming from, the body that the movements were being shown by. And that for me was like, right, representation does matter. So well, maybe I'll ask for volunteers because I see this at one curveball. Ask for the story share. What are you thinking, Jordana? You're moving. Can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I'll just share that I'm very lucky and that I came up on an all-female sales team, which is so rare at an art technology company. And then when we brought in a head of sales, he was a man and just so emotionally intelligent and so empowering that I wasn't even really aware at that time of the broader sales landscape being dominated by white men. And then when I moved into my sales coaching and training role, full time, but before starting my own consultancy, it was mostly men at the company. But like in the interview, they asked me about my son and my childcare needs, not to penalize me. I mean, I know this is a really rare story, but literally to accommodate me. And I'd say that it's really not until the last couple of years when I've said like, hell yes, I'm in sales and really doubled down and really committed to this and joined the community that I've started to notice the crazy disparities, which, the industry at large is working to fix them and organizations are trying to do the right thing and build awareness. But what I'll share is that my experience, I know as a woman in sales, is really not the norm. But I want to throw the story out there because it's just a variation of what's possible as well.
I love that twist. Maybe twist is the wrong word, but upend of what we've been hearing so much about. I'm reading bodies. Megan, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking a few things. There's definitely been times in my career. So interestingly enough, this past year, since I've joined Salesforce, 1.5 years, is the first time that I have had a female VP or any executive representation of leadership where I can see myself being there. That's always been the weird part is I've had awesome female managers and around me. I've had well-represented teams. Okay, it could always be better. This is the first time that I have someone on the executive level where I'm like, okay. And I didn't realize that light bulb moment needed to happen, but it did need to happen for myself because once you start seeing yourself there, you're like, oh wait, this is actually a possibility. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And also too, they understand like my current AVP, she's an unreal. She's amazing. She is a mom. She's doing all of these things that they're for women who don't have that sort of role model above them. It can sometimes be a little bit daunting when we're starting to make these different life decisions. So yeah, it's been pretty cool to have such a juxtaposition to my previous environments.
I think it's funny that you use the word cool. It is cool. It's like,
cool.
It's a combination of inspiring and motivating and just what a neat feeling. Apple, did you have a story you want to share too?
Yeah, I hate that I keep echoing off Meg, but I will echo that my CRO, my executive vice president for all of healthcare and life sciences, is a Black woman. And I don't think I've ever seen that at any organization. And to see what's possible is a huge, it's huge for me because oftentimes behind closed doors. I don't know what's really happening. I don't know if there's any voices regarding like family care, as we talked about briefly, and you know, just having a different perspective in the room is really nice to have. I wouldn't say I've had anything horrible happen to me as a woman seller, because I was an account executive before becoming a solution engineer. I will say it's just nice to have someone in the room that understands your experience. If I say, especially right now, I have a man as a manager, absolutely wonderful, because he has kids and he understands, you know, how important family is and that dynamic. And I think it's important to talk about male allies in the space and not just women allies, because at the end of the day, we're all in it together, especially during this interesting time in the pandemic. Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight all the amazing male allies that we've had over the years that are supporting women and folks of color.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. So you echo Megan, I'll echo you. That's good. So thank you. And thank you for sharing. Helpful, not just understanding context and everything, but just to kind of cross compare. So I'm going to pivot a little bit into the direction of classrooms, teaching, instruction, that kind of thing. This is a two-part question. Can you encapsulate, summarize your approach to teaching and instruction when we're in the classroom? And then secondary question, you can choose which direction you want to take it. What's your preferred learning style? Are those two things necessarily connected? I don't know. We'll see which way this goes. And let me invert everything, Apple. I'm going to start with you so you don't feel like you have to echo because we're going to build off each other here. Go for it.
Yeah, my teaching style is definitely very empathetic. And well, I teach in my day job, so I love structure. So there's two things: being from an empathetic lens of thinking about, okay, this student has never heard of Salesforce or never heard of a discovery call. And I try to remember what it was like for me when I first started as a BDR of, okay, what helped me when I first started? And what helped for me was role play. So role play is my style of learning, having a bunch of at-bats, practicing constantly, if not with a friend, but also with my partner. Like I practice with everyone. And to the point where I feel like it's just autopilot. I can jump on a call, I know the structure I'm going to go through, and be able to active listen and react. And I think those pieces really translate well. And what I loved about Uvaro is that it's not just textbook, here are a bunch of sales tactics that we're going to go through today. It's more about let's practice, let's learn together. And I love that aspect in the classroom.
Feel like I have to toss it to Georgiana because when she said practice, I was you kind of. So what are you thinking? Go for it.
Well, I mean, look. So I mean, in the last year, I started with a collaborator this training community called the Practice Lab for all of the reasons you said, Apple. Like, what's so interesting is that practice is like the status quo way that every other skill in the world develops, right? You don't just get told something and then are expected to do it. But for some reason in sales, you know, the training is often this kind of cerebral activity where we're forced to sit passively in a room and absorb all this information. And then the only time we have to practice is when the stakes are high on our calls with prospects, which is literally insane. And I think, you know, the sales community is kind of coming around to understanding that. So, you know, I'll just +1 the vitalness of practice for a couple of reasons. One, I'd say from just like a pure skills development perspective, practice builds skill. But what's also very exciting when I work with organizations to help them to build cultures of practice is that within the practice space, like a lot of really vital cultural things happen. Like people take risks, people fail, people are vulnerable, people stumble, people ask for feedback, people give feedback. And all of those behaviors map, and there's like science to back this, it's pretty amazing, like map to the presence of psychological safety on a team, which is like far and away the leading indicator of health and high performance on teams. So I kind of geek out about practice, both from the perspective of skill development, but also for its incredibly powerful impact on culture as well.
That's perfect to segue to my answer, because I was going to say my learning style is it has to be a safe environment. I can't retain any information regardless of what it is if things are too high stakes, or I don't feel safe, or I don't feel supported. And that's the same from university. If it was a class that I didn't feel comfortable in, and then I freeze on the exam, or that type of environment. So when I'm selling and I have there's a lot of team selling that we do here at Salesforce. And if I don't feel in sync with the team, or I feel like something's off, or if the customer's not feeling safe, also that's a big one. So I definitely have to learn in a really safe environment. And then the other answer to your question of what type of teaching style, one thing that I feel like this is so human. Us as human beings always have a list of things that we want to improve on. Always. We have this like checklist, like I want to be better at this, all your little tweaks of weaknesses. One thing that I've learned is that why do we try to always improve on every single one of our weaknesses and not double down on what we're really, really good at? So I always like to try and show students that, yes, we do need to improve, but we can also do more of what we're great at, and we can hone in on some of our strengths, and we can teach other people our strengths. And you have a hopefully diverse environment around you that's going to start to fill in some of those gaps for each other. So I'd say that's my teaching philosophy is, why do we always have to improve on things that we're bad at? Let's just be great at what we're good at.
Just to build on that really quickly, I just think you brought up like one of the most important questions that an enablement team or a sales leader can ask themselves. It's not just like, what are we going to teach our team this year? It's like, is this a place that's safe to learn? Because you can teach the
100%.
greatest lessons, the greatest things on the planet, but if you don't have an environment where it is safe to learn, none of that stuff is going to be absorbed. There's not going to be a lot of practicing happening, and it's not going to turn into actual new behavior. So that's just such a powerful thing you brought up.
100%.
Yeah.
Like even on my own team that I support, they all have different selling styles, and we all work for the same company and sell the same products. So being able to really have a mindset of, okay, this person's strength is this person's strength is this, but it's all a team together. So if you put everyone together, we talk about superheroes, and often at Uvaro, you put them together, you've got this amazing Marvel superhero team, really. And I think in modern selling, it's not just about being the best at running a disco or running a demo or closing hard. It's more about really leveraging your strengths and making an experience, a human experience, like Meg talked about at the end of the day.
The superheroes was the first thing I was thinking about.
Yeah, I love that.
Starting to dig into, because it's a reality. There's so much expertise in the room, on the team. It's like, let's just amplify. I like that approach, Megan. And I love, as you're all talking, how obvious and apparent it comes out in the way you're talking, that this is a very ingrained mindset for all of you. Create the safe space, and then the pursuit of growth and learning and everything. So this pivots nicely to an actually planned thing, which, which is nice when we could actually hit here a little bit to the script. So when it comes to your own learning, right, not opposite side or same side of a different coin, learning, teaching, what's your approach when you want to learn a new skill, and where do you look for the teachers? Okay. I'll throw it to you, Megan. I haven't started with you yet.
Sometimes my approach is to just get my hands on it and fail fast. That's one thing. I remember one best advice I got when I started at Salesforce. I said, how do I get good at this really quickly? And one of the reps said, get as many at-bats as possible, as fast as you can. So do it over and over and over again. And I think that's where I like to try to start, is I like to do it over and over and over again until I get it right. One thing that I could improve on and likely make that process easier is I have to get, now that I'm in this team selling environment, which is very new. I've always come from sales environments where you're out for 2 weeks in the middle of Austin, Texas, by yourself. Apple knows we used to work together. at a previous company, I was always in that type of environment where you're very alone. I'm not alone anymore. So I don't have to have that mindset of fail fast by myself. I can learn from other people around me, find out what their style was, what worked for them, and then incorporate that for myself. But also remember that I'm an individual, and how I'm going to sell, just like Apple said, how I'm going to learn is completely different than how my colleagues are going to learn. So yeah, I just get in there and try as hard as possible, fail a lot. I fail a lot before I get it right.
Do the damn thing. That's good. Jordana, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm someone who learns best in collaboration with other people. So I'm like the first person to reach out for a therapist, a coach, a facilitation coach, a revenue, and it's not just that I feel like help me. It's more like I just get so much from the exchange of ideas and the collaboration. And I think one of the falsehoods about successful people are at the top of their careers, or that they've somehow gotten there alone, or that they don't have a personal board of directors, and that is not true. Everyone that I have come across who has done something great, built something great, has something of value to share, has usually built that thing in collaboration with others, and are constantly relying on the guidance of feedback and exchange of ideas from their community. So, in terms of, not that you were asking for any advice, but I would just encourage everyone, not to be afraid of not knowing, and not to feel like you need to posture in the world as if you know it all. And there's so much power in acknowledging the areas where you can develop and continue to grow, and then reaching out for exactly the support you need. So, for what it's worth.
I love this. I always want advice, Jordana. This is great. And it recalls a few books I've had recommended recently, and just things that I'm reading, because that vulnerability is key, that willingness to call it out. Can't get help if you don't ask for it. Apple, what are you thinking?
So I feel like I'm the nerd of the group on the call, but I actually keep a very systematic quip. Quip is like Word document, a quip of every day, every call, what went well, what didn't. So I do a little quick note on the side, because my role is so technical. There's constantly far off questions that I don't know the answer to. So I'm constantly tracking that. But I actually learned that from one of the senior solution engineers on the team. And he's been around for 6 years at Salesforce. And he's an incredible mentor, like I mentioned earlier, about a male ally, very white male. When I said to him, hey, I'm from this borough in Toronto, he was a little bit scared of me at first, but we came together. He's from the north of Ontario. So for context of my American friends, Northern Ontario it's very countryside. It's not very city at all. And I'm from the deep city. We'll say that. And so, and it was great getting to know him and learning from him. And what he did was track everything, because your first year or two as a solution engineer is all about learning all the technical aspects in and out. And so I'm a lot more systematic, but at the same token, I'm not, because I'm just reflecting on someone who's already done it for 6 years. And so I learned best by meeting folks like that. And from really just even from my reps, whether they're a week into the role or 2 years, some of the things that they do, I always write down, oh my gosh, that was incredible on that call. I should steal that line. And so really learning regardless from your peers is really key, I feel like. I hope that answers that, Sheila.
It really does.
And not a rant. Okay.
Is it quip.com? Is that did I get the right thing?
Oh, I'm selling now. Okay, so
I'm just curious.
I can sell you that product, Sheila.
Did
I'll bring Apple for the technical side of it, but
I just want to make sure I threw the right app into the channel there, so I'm not.
Yeah, you can use anything. It's just a notepad basically that I use to track things.
Okay, I love it. And this is a personal curiosity for all of you, whether it's at work right now or in your personal lives outside of, the real side of ourselves. They can be the same. Is there anything specific you're currently working on learning? Here we go. What are you thinking, Megan?
I always feel like I'm trying to learn a bunch of things. I just started a new role now, and it's exposed a lot of insecurities in my life. So I just started on the financial service team. And to admit to all of those on this call, financial service, I've just started an RSP this year. I have a Scene Visa credit card. So for those that don't know, it collects movie points. So I'm quite out of my comfort zone. So I'm trying to learn what cryptocurrency is and all of these different things that my customers are so into, that I know nothing about. And it's been a journey. I feel like I'm going to make better financial choices for myself in the future, which is a big benefit. So I'm trying to get more involved in that world, and I probably should have had financial literacy a lot younger. I don't know why they didn't teach how to do taxes in school and other things like that. So that's what I'm trying to get into now. And a really cool thing that's come out of it is I'm working with a lot of really awesome financial services companies in Toronto, and a lot of them are women-led, which that's something that shocked me. I had no clue that space was, because it's something that I predominantly don't see that. But in Toronto, there's a growing landscape for these fantastic leaders at the top of financial service companies and fintechs.
Very cool. What are you thinking, Jordana? Are you working on something?
Well, so I'm like looking at my ukulele. I committed to learning a number of months ago and then kind of fell off, but it's there, and I get a lot of joy out of it when I when I do it. But one of the things that's interesting about being in business for yourself is that unless you're doing just like out of the box, let's say sales training workshops, like copy paste, like when I'm getting in deep with these companies in my kind of consulting work, it's almost like every time I do something is the very first time. And that comes with a lot of anxiety. It's like you sell a $25,000 engagement or whatever people are paying, and then you have to figure it out because every organization is different. And I'll just share that that's been a scary part of doing this work. But then I also have peers and a circle of folks who are like a couple steps down the path. And I literally today from a mentor just got a message saying like, I just sold a $57,000 consulting contract and I'm Googling, how do I create a sales plan? Not that she doesn't know how to do it deeply, but there's, no matter how successful you are, like when you're doing things for the first time, every time there's always that question of like, do I know how to do this? So that's a major thing I'm learning. And then the other thing is around the practice lab and the sales training community. Like I've never built a community, and I've never had to sell it, both to individuals and into organizations. And that's an entirely new muscle. And I'll share that as a sales coach, it's one muscle to be able to empower others to like up their skills and to grow their confidence and to be much more effective. But I'll share that on my own sales calls, like I had an objection come at me that I was so unprepared for it that I didn't ask a single question on a call with one of my own prospects. I went into like this defended mode, which is everything that I teach sellers not to do. So I share that because there's a real difference between like knowing something and being able to do it. And that regardless of where you're at in your career, like as you shared, Meg, like you're always learning things and getting out of your comfort zone. So sorry to ramble, but those are just the areas where I'm really aware that I'm kind of learning and stretching in a way that's good and also sometimes uncomfortable.
So thank you so much for sharing that. And both of you, so the timing of it, just having conversations with colleagues, and I'm sure you run into this at some point where you're working on something and you both kind of look at each other and are like, do we know what we're doing?
Yeah.
Like, how are we going to do this? And then backfilling and trying to figure it out like that. I love hearing these stories, helpful, but also the process you're going through. Like, no, this is part of the thing, just not knowing and going and figuring it out. Apple, how about you?
Oh man, how much time do we have? So when I made the switch from account executive to solution engineer, I had major imposter syndrome because first off, Salesforce was like this gold star that I looked at for years. And being a solution engineer in healthcare, it was like all the things that I wanted for a very long time. And I remember my first demo build, I had no idea how to approach it. I was like, okay, well, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And so I reached out to a peer on my team and she sat with me for 3 hours. We built the thing together. Of course, my AE had no idea, but maybe they'll listen to this and find out. But I learned a lot from that night working on the build together was that, you know what, it's okay. I don't know how to do this, but you know what, this is actually fun. It's like building a Lego set for tomorrow. And again, the first few demos that I did last year, not the best work. But like Meg had talked about earlier, failing and failing fast and forward is the way to go. So a lot of failure, a lot of long hours, but now these days it takes me what, 20 minutes, but oh man, Sheila, in the beginning, I was like, did they make the right decision? Do they want to find another Apollonia from across the street? Like, I'm sure she's like a computer whiz. She could do it. But yeah, and that's how I overcame that. And it took a lot of, I actually like journaled a lot the past year during the pandemic, and it helped a ton for me.
It's interesting. I'll just add, Sheila, like it just reminds me of the difference between needing to feel like you know something versus have the capacity or like the capability to learn it. And Apple, like what you just described, like you couldn't know it just arriving. And I, with these engagements, like I can't know exactly what this team needs, but there's the capacity to learn and understand. And that's what's so beautiful. So it's like giving yourself the permission to embrace the capacity, even in absence of the knowing.
I'm hearing confidence in your capacity to figure it out, to learn, to grow. And like that's
but Sheila, if you asked me last year, I'd say the world is falling. And I think as women, I've had this conversation many times with new solution engineers actually, is that we tend to feel like we need to have all the boxes, studied all the certs, know how to program everything. And in reality, that's just not possible. And being okay to not know is a skill in itself.
I'm picturing an entertaining line of t-shirts that say normalize failing. It seems weird to say it that way, but it's normalizing it as a normal, natural part of the process, the learning, the growing. Yeah, I'm just remembering how many t-shirts we have to make from our last session here, but this is great. I don't want to, this is like a 45-degree pivot. I try to quantify it. It's not 90 degrees, it's not 180. We're kind of like slightly off here. When it comes to the things you've experienced in the classroom at Uvaro, whether it's the class or the demo day or the extra session or an external session, when I talk about teaching, the word that comes up frequently for me is surprising. Sometimes it's also other things, but surprising is the one that lets me take it in whatever direction I want to in the moment. So from the things you've experienced in this environment, what are the things that have stood out as most surprising for you? And I'll toss it over to you first, Jordana, just we'll kind of snowball on it from there.
You know, I think what's, I don't even know if it's surprising or just impressive is the sheer like breadth and depth of the diversity of experiences people are coming into this program with. You know, I mean, there's no one fixed path into coming into sales, but I always just, I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the students have had just such a wide range of life experiences. And that in itself, if they're able to stay with themselves in their selling, right, and bring their own humanity into what they're doing, is just going to give such a rich experience to their prospects and to their teammates for the life that they had before they went into tech sales. So that's a big takeaway for me.
Before time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apple, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's one of those things, I feel like, especially during the pandemic, a lot of us had a lot more time on our hands to really think through like what what's your goals in life, what do you really want to do, and that's why a lot of folks come to Uvaro. And what surprised me the most was how inspired I became in my own role, just talking to students and reminding myself of why I left a career in science, life sciences, and why I left to begin with. Because after a while, even as an AE, you kind of see the same patterns and it's easy to get jaded. And I was reaching that point of, oh my goodness, I'm about to get jaded again, another sales cycle. And these students inspire me all the time of how driven they are, how much they want to get better. And it makes me want to be a better, not only in my sales role, but just as a person, just a better person all around. And they truly are so heartwarming. Like some of the stories that they share in class and outside of class, some of the one-on-one coaching sessions that I've had just absolutely blew me away. And I'd be in tears after, just like, that was so sweet. And my partner asking me, are you okay? Like, did the student say something awful? I'm like, no, just like so inspired. So yeah, biggest takeaway from me from the students.
I hear that, Megan. I see you nodding. What are you thinking?
I get a lot. I get a lot from the students. One thing too is I love that the students are coming in with such conviction of trying to figure out their why and what's next. And that's something that I forget about all the time. Before making the transition and joining Salesforce, I was in that I'm on a rocket ship to burnout, working every night, not having a personal life, neglecting my relationships, and didn't know, I wasn't in tune with what my why was anymore. So the cool thing that's happened, one, the pandemic's triggered a lot of that. And I feel like for a lot of people we're reevaluating our priorities. But when I'm talking to these students that are coming from that we have some people coming right out of a diploma or right out of school, or that had just taken time off to become moms, or so many different places and motivations, that it reminds me, okay, what is my motivation right now? Because my motivation now, as I'm turning 30 this summer versus when I was starting my sales career when I was 24, 25, it's totally different. So it's helped keep my compass a little bit more focused on growth and the things that matter, that really matter to me, versus the things that I had perceived mattered to me before.
Okay, and that just cracked open all things burnout, mindset management, all of this stuff loosely relates to some of the questions I had planned. So let's follow that thread. Burnout, I feel like the last 2 years it's come up with everybody I've spoken to. What does it look like? How do you identify it? And then how do you mitigate it? And anything you want to share in terms of how you've run up against it or how you've helped others deal with it. And I'll throw it to you, Jordana. My youngest has joined me, so apologies for any background noise.
Yeah, so I've never really subscribed to the hustle culture, but what I'll share is that I'm starting, not to get too woo-woo, but I'm really starting to recognize that my emotional life and my body is always communicating with me. And what I mean by that is that there are some days where sitting in front of the computer and just pounding away is not going to work for me. And even, a year ago, when I first started out in my own business, I just ignored the signs saying, and again, I wasn't on the path to burnout, but I ignored the signs saying, take a rest, or take the day off, and I would just sit in my computer miserably forcing myself to do the work. And what would result would be an inferior work product, or nothing done at all, and a miserable day. And so what I'm really learning to do, and I'm doing a lot of meditation and all these other things, but I'm really learning to tune in to the inner compass that tells me, and this is fortunate, I realize, because I work for myself and I'm not working for a company where when to take the foot off the gas. And I'm recognizing too that as a woman, we have cycles, and that there are different rhythms that come up, in our working lives and our personal lives at different times of the month. And I think that's worth paying attention to. So in short, it's okay not to be going at the same speed and the same pace with the same intensity all the time. And in fact, I think it's unnatural. So that's what I'd say to that.
I hear that. I hear the Apple. What are you thinking?
Yeah, that burnout piece. So I will say I'm the opposite. Sorry, Janetta. I definitely did the hustle, loyalty, respect. Sorry, I had to say hustle, loyalty, respect. That the hustle life for a while at different startups, at Slack, and now here at Salesforce. I think what I implemented for myself is on a bi-weekly cadence, I have a conversation with my mom, and she instantly brings me back to planet Earth and tells me, hey, how often are you going to the gym? Hey, when was the last time you saw me in person? And she's very good at calling me out on making sure I keep a good standard of life outside of, this box. And she's my gatekeeper and my person. In the past, I definitely leaned on friends, but due to the pandemic, everyone catching COVID, unfortunately, I've been really leaning on family more so. So that's been my saving grace there.
Right. So I think everyone should have a bi-weekly cadence with their mom at least. Thank you for putting it in. This is what I have going on.
You're welcome, everyone.
And you know what? Automate the notifications, people. Just make it happen. Megan, what are you thinking?
The Meg that you would have met 2.5 years ago is completely different than the Meg you'd meet today. It was so bad. I'll confess this, that my manager, I report into an exec, and he could message me at any time, the weekend, the evenings, whatever it was, and respected responses. I don't know how I got myself to that scenario. We could look deep into my childhood past of I'm a military kid. So I have this like authority, respect, or something going on that I'm working through. But it led to me not taking a vacation for almost 3 or 4 years. Not a single day vacation. And I felt this perceived, I love what Jordan was saying, the foot on the gas feeling. I really felt that if I took my foot off the gas, that the car was going to crash and that everyone was going to die. But then I just broke during the pandemic. I had a manager that started to take over my team who said, you have to take time off. You've got to take 2 weeks off. Go, turn your stuff off. And during that time, I had gotten over the pandemic really into road cycling. So I just took 2 weeks and I just did a ton of road cycling, a ton of reflection, met my now fiance during that 2 weeks, came back, put my notice in. And then when I started at my new job, I wrote down non-negotiables. I am not working past 5. I am not working on the weekend. I am going to the gym as often as my body wants me to go to the gym. I'm going to see my family. I hadn't been up to see my sister's baby enough since it was born. So all of these things, I wrote them down, and I love that Apple checks in with her mom every 2 weeks. I do something similar with my family where they have to hold me accountable to that so that I don't get lost back into that hustle. Because when you have a quota and all these different things going on, it's hard not to slip back into that environment. But now I've realized that when I am healthy outside of work and my relationships are strong and I have a strong relationship with myself, I do very well in my sales career, that they are very much related. So I fundamentally believe that it ever comes to a point where I have to start to stretch outside that means that it's just not the right job for me anymore. So that's a really nice indicator of if it's a good environment or if it's not the environment that's going to work for me.
That sounds like, I love that you're sharing this, and thank you. First of all, I am hoping that the people on the call who are listening can learn from that experience, because I don't want anybody to have to go through that, the breaking point that you're describing and hitting a point where it's just like 3 years without a vacation is a long time, Meg.
And I like that you asked how to know a sign of burnout. For me, like, I'm a very happy and positive human being. And it was when I wasn't that person. And where I had one of the reps on my team, because I was managing at that point, say, whoa, like, you need to get out of here. like, you need to stop, like, what's going on? And I realized that, oh, I looked and I was like, my relationships outside of work and inside of work are starting to fall apart. And I need to get my, sorry, not to swear, I need to get my stuff together here and course correct.
I have the headphones, so the kid can't hear. We're okay. Oh, very, so helpful. Just in terms of identifying it and like avoid at all costs. And this probably, I'm guessing that present Meg, if you could talk to past Meg, might be like, this can all be avoided. If you consider these things.
We wouldn't have been friends. Definitely.
Okay.
Past Meg and current Meg, no, it wasn't pleasant.
So I'll throw this question out then to dig into. If you all could go back to your past self and give that nugget of advice, what would that, like, what would it be? What would you tell yourself? And when I say past self, I mean, maybe just at the start of your sales career. We'll start there. Some thinking going on. I see Apple thinking. I'll toss it to you first, Apple.
I can respond. I'm going to say this right away. It's just to not second guess yourself. I second guessed myself way too much. And I should have not second guessed it and just dove right in and not be afraid to fail. I was very afraid to fail, and that held me back quite a bit on learning the sales motion, learning how to qualify, prospect, all the good stuff. Yeah, that's the biggest piece, I would say. It's just leaning in and fail fast. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking lean and fail fast, logging it. Jordana, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I think it's kind of related to the idea of just reaching out for help, like I referenced before. But I did used to feel that I needed to present myself to the world as like this finished product who just knew. And in addition to that being incredibly stressful because no one is finished, it inadvertently deprived me of mentorship opportunities at the time. And I think people can just sense that openness or closeness to support. And once I started to, and it's a long process, you know, I've worked with coaches and therapists over 10 years. I mean, you know, you've got to feel comfortable with who you are first in order to be able to bring that person into the world. But I'd say that if you can accept just bringing who you are into the world as someone who is in progress and sometimes in need of support and guidance and mentorship, then those people will find you like moth to a flame. And that's when learning and growth really accelerates.
Yeah. Mine's kind of a hybrid of the two, because I definitely came in like Apple with this imposter syndrome, like where I second guessed myself, but I didn't want to show anyone that I was second guessing myself. So I didn't invite a lot of help either early in my career, where now like, please help me. Like I'm whatever I can learn from other people, then I love that. And I didn't have mentors at the beginning. I didn't know how to reach out for mentors, and I didn't ask anyone how to do that. And I probably would have helped me with that imposter syndrome piece a lot earlier, because I'm pretty sure I had someone early in my career, in my sales career, I can almost remember this day, where they said, fake it till you make it. And I realized that that's probably not what you should do. Like it's a little bit backwards, right? You hear it's lonely at the top, fake it till you make it, hustle culture. And now if I could tell my past self that, then like throw out the hustle culture, set your boundaries, don't fake it, be yourself, be authentic and vulnerable, and then everything else will come.
Everything else will come. I like that. It's
Well,
ideally it's a spin on the trust the process, but the process is a lot more about just allowing yourself to be in progress. I like, you guys are like tying it all together. This is amazing. I'm so happy right now. So I was going to ask all of you, and I feel like we've already drifted into that territory. So I'll float it, and if we want to add, we can. If not, we'll take another direction. I was going to ask about hard lessons that you've learned and what it unlocked for you. And Meg, yours was a great example of like hard lesson learned. Burnout is the result of that first state, and what it's unlocked for you is this new work-life balance. So let's take this concept and maybe get a little bit more tactical with it. We'll relate it more specifically to sales, but like, what's a hard lesson you had to learn the hard way, the like failing real-time way, and what did that unlock for you? And Jordana, I'll throw it to you first.
That's a good one. It's funny, even in the moment, I've never really thought about like failure as, it's hard, it feels hard, but I've kind of had the ability somehow to recognize it for the opportunity that it is in a way. It's interesting, I was let go of my very cushy and awesome sales job a number of years ago after I'd moved upstate from the city, and there's no sales job market to speak of up here, and this was before the world went remote. And I was working with a coach and getting used to this idea of reaching out for help and being curious because I didn't know what I was going to do. And I read this great book, Designing Your Life, which really helped to shine a light on just how much I loved sales coaching and empowering other humans. But what I'll share is that in the process of trying to figure out how to become a sales coach, I kind of pivot from seller to coach, and in this new remote world, I found a job at a sales coaching and training company that I was really excited about, but the pay was $20 an hour. And I had come from a 6-figure sales job. But so on the one hand, it's like, you're not going to get paid to do what you want. But on the other hand, I was like, hold on a minute. This company is incredible. Like the learning opportunity that I see here is like real. And I remember my husband and I talking over, and it obviously was a difficult thing to do from a financial perspective, but I took this major financial hit for like a year, and we had to really tighten everything up. But kind of taking that step back, led to all of the learning that I hoped that would be there, and has been what's propelled me and allowed me to really understand just how much I love this work and to create my own, future in a way. So layoff and pay cut, which could be seen as these like really devastating things, turned into opportunity. So it's kind of a variation on the question, but that's what came to mind.
Such a great example. Thank you for sharing that. And I, as you're speaking, I see Apple and Megan both like, oh, this is unlocking things. Apple, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, Jordana, I love that you shared that. I think the biggest lesson I've learned in the past few years is that your identity is not your job. For many years, even before I entered tech sales, I would always introduce myself. Hey, I'm a microbiologist. I work at XYZ company. I am smart. I am science. That was my whole life and personality. And I think we do a detriment often to young people when going through the school system is you are this, you get a gold star, you are your report card, you are your attendance. And then it turns into, okay, what do you do for work? It's one of the first questions we ask people when we meet someone. And I think it's really important to disassociate yourself from your work, have hobbies. I went back to playing piano. So full circle from the start of this call. And now I'm playing as much as I can at home. And really just develop, thoughts, ideas, hobbies outside of work. That's my biggest learning and takeaway over the past few years.
That's a big one. This comes up in class frequently, the need for that to get ahead of it. Megan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, one lesson that I've learned, and I don't know if it was necessarily like a failure or something that I just didn't, because of a lot of the things that Jordana had said before about not asking for help or posturing yourself in like a certain way, that I didn't do, is I didn't know how to fight for myself. I didn't know how to, and to get very technical, for example, negotiate my salary. I was scared to do that, or to get like high level, like set my boundaries at work. I didn't know I could. I thought I had to do certain things. So that was a miss on my part, where I felt like I had to check off every single thing on the job description before I applied to it. Because as Apple said, I compared myself to report cards. I did all these competencies. I held myself off from applying for the job I'm in now because I would read the job descriptions, which I look back at that and I regret that. So I now have learned more to fight for myself. And I kind of wish I had a mentor at the time to tell me to do that, to say, hey, like you have to fight for you. No one else is going to do that.
Okay, this is phenomenal. So I feel like this is a conversation we should continue, but maybe over food maybe with a glass of wine. I don't know. I'm also very cognizant of what I promised timing wise and where we're at now. So I'm going to bring it all together. And I just wanted to say, thank you so much, not just for the time, but for the willingness to go deep with this, and to bring vulnerability and hard lessons, normalizing failure in a public platform. Like that takes a lot. And I'm very appreciative. So I just thank you so much. Thank you for being here, all of you.
Yeah, thank you
for having us, Sheila. Nice to meet you.
Jordana,
We should do this again.
Meg, yeah, we got to
Absolutely.
do this again.
So great. You
All
guys
right,
have a
so
great day.
All right,
I'll
bye.
talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.